Gordon was ill. The busy season had taken its toll on him, and he was in thorough need of maintenance. While he was away at the works, the Fat Controller selected Molly to take the express in place of him. "It's time you had a change of pace from your normal work," he said. Molly was delighted. He sped down the main line at an excellent pace, always keeping to time. The coaches sang her praises, and the passengers were thoroughly impressed. "You've still got it, old girl," the driver said. "Just like the old days, huh?" Molly agreed. Well, everyone was happy for Molly. Her absence from goods work meant that the other engines had to pick up the slack. One such engine was James, who loved to voice his opinion. "It's disgusting," the young man said. "Why should I have to pull dirty trucks so Molly can go gallivanting off to the express?" "Shut your mouth, James," retorted Donald. "It's about time you unless cut a Blake." "I concur, Donald," said Murdoch. "But you must admit there is some strain on our cook figures with her gone." "I thought as much, Murdoch," said the Fat Controller as he strolled into the sheds. "Which is why I've asked a friend for another engine to be brought here while Gordon is away. They're a steam engine, so hopefully we shan't have any, complaints this time round. You should arrive by tomorrow afternoon." He then looked at James. "Well, I appreciate feedback, James. I'd rather not have it at the expense of others. It shall be good work next week for you. Good night, all." He spun on his heel, walked to his car, and drove off, leaving James as red as his paintwork. As promised, the new engine arrived that afternoon. He had 4 wheels at the front, 6 driving wheels, and a cab that looked similar to Molly's. He was painted in apple green with black and white lighting. He pulled into the big station's yard and stopped at the coaling stage. Henry greeted him. "Hello. You must be the new engine that's come to help out." "My name's Henry. What's yours?" "My name is Sagar," the engine bellowed. "And yes, that's why I'm here. Happy to be of assistance to your railway. You wouldn't happen to be Henry the Green Engine, would you?" Henry laughed. "Yes, I'm the one who's rebuilt the black cars and paid for the Queen. And pulled 2 dead diesels and their trains. You really must give yourself more credit, my dear fellow. That's not something to scoff at." "Oh, it was really nothing," Henry blushed. "Just being an enterprising engine. You really are a humble sort. Sorry to end our conversation so suddenly, but I mustn't be late with my first train. Goodbye, Henry." Sagar puffed away, leaving Henry thoroughly impressed. Henry told the others about Sagar. "He's a lovely engine. Doesn't make a fuss about goods work either. Does it easily as well," he told Molly at the workstation that evening. "I hope you can meet him soon." The guards whistled blue and Henry whistled goodbye. As Henry puffed away, Molly pondered for a moment. Sagar. That name sounds familiar. She continued to think as she puffed away. As the new morning dawned, Molly puffed to the big station to collect her coaches. She was surprised to see Percy shunting her coaches to the platform. "Hello, Percy. What are you doing here?" "Oh, hi, Molly. Rosie hasn't been feeling well, so I volunteered to help Charlie with the work. How's the express been?" "Lovely, just lovely. Makes me feel like a young engine again." All of a sudden, a deep whistle blew, and Sagar puffed into the station. He looked at Molly and stopped. "Oh, you're here," he grumbled. Molly went pale. "Oh, what are you doing here?" "Molly, do you know this engine?" asked Percy. Hello, Morgan. I see you've tried to fool your new friends here as well." Suddenly, Molly's guard waved his flag, and Molly hastily started off. As she left, Sagar looked at Percy. "But don't talk to them. They're not to be trusted." He puffed away. Percy was very puzzled indeed. The engines talked about Sagar at the sheds that night. "You're right, Henry. That Sagar chap is nice. He gave me a whistle this morning. He was very kind," said Bear. said my paint looked lovely today. He really knows how to make an engine feel splendid, boasted James. He complimented my branch line when he came to Brendan. He does seem like a nice fellow, Edward smiled. Just then, Percy hopped in. He's not nice, he's mean. He was rude to Molly and called her a name. Whatever are you talking about, Percy? Asked Emily, confused. He's a delightful engine. Just ask Molly, persisted Percy. She'll... where is she? Don't know, said Bear. She arrived at the express but never came to the shed. She's most likely got other duties, said Murdoch. I'm sure there's nothing to worry about, Percy. Wait just a moment, Murdoch, said Henry. The last time this happened, Percy was right to be suspicious. Perhaps we should be cautious of this Sagar. We did get slicked before, James recalled. What do you mean, James? Asked Douglas. Or do you want to tell them, Henry? I suppose. As Henry explained the past events, Percy couldn't stop wondering what had happened to Molly. Next morning, Percy woke up to go shunt the coaches for the express. When he arrived at the carriage shed, he was surprised to find the track empty. That's strange, they're usually here. He looked all across the yard, but the express coaches were nowhere to be found. He decided the express would just have to go with normal coaches until he could find them. He was baffled when he saw the express sitting at the wrong platform. Either somebody is messing with me or I've gone crazy. He took his coaches back to the shed and came back to move the ones in the express. He and his crew were even more confused when the guards walked out of his compartment. Whatever are you playing at, fireman? We're moving these coaches to the right platform, that's what. What are you doing in there? Getting ready to leave, of course. Without an engine? Of course not, you fool. Sagar's at the front. Molly had some sort of problem. As for the platform, apparently there's been some sort of change. I'll uncouple this instant. Percy's fireman did as he was told. As Sagar left, Percy was dumbfounded to see Molly hurrying down the line. Sorry I'm late, she panted. There was a problem with the water column. Are my coaches ready? They were, said Percy. He explained what happened. It's fine, Percy. I can just take the local, she said sadly. Percy didn't think it was fine at all, and he mumbled to himself as he went to fetch Molly's coaches. It was late when Molly puffed into the sheds that evening. All the drivers, firemen, and cleaners had left, and the engines were in deep conversation. Molly, said Edward as she puffed in. Where were you? We were getting worried. I told them everything about Sagar, said Percy. Such a mean engine. Why did you not tell us sooner, lass? Asked Donald. Molly said nothing. She just stared at her buffers and went into her berth, her tender facing the others. Molly, is everything all right? You haven't been yourself lately, asked Murdoch quietly. Silence. If something's bothering you, you can tell us, said Bear reassuringly. Go on, girl, tell them, whispered her driver. Her fireman patted her buffer. They're your friends, and it's just us. Okay. She backed onto the turntable and faced the others. I wasn't always called Molly, she stuttered. Back on my old railway, I was called Morgan. As time went on, I started feeling like the name wasn't for me. It didn't feel right. I didn't feel like a Morgan. I felt like a Molly. I felt like a girl. I just told my close friends to call me at first, but somehow the secret got out. Soon the whole shed knew. They called me all sorts of names, and some refused to talk to me. Sagar was one of them. Molly began to tear up. It got so bad to the point where an engine even bashed me through some buffers when I talked back to them. After that, I was transferred to another shed. I never told anybody there, and somehow nobody found out. My preservationist was kind and called me Molly, but I was still afraid of telling others that was my name. When I found out I was coming here, I saw an opportunity to start over and be who I really was. But now I'm scared I'm not going to be able to work here anymore. Molly began to cry. Why would some people not want you to be a girl? Asked Percy. Some don't think engines or people should be allowed to change the agenda, Edward explained. Silence fell. Douglas spoke up. I don't know about ye lot, but if that Sagar pulls through those doors, I'll shut him in the next week. Aye, agreed Donald. Molly's our friend, no matter her agenda. Cheers greeted this. Well said, Donald, well said, agreed Emily. Indeed, said Murdoch. We should tell the Fat Controller out, Molly shouted. She blushed and looked away. Sorry, Murdoch, The Fat Controller's a good man, said Henry. But he might not share our views, I'm sorry to say, finished Edward. Of course he would share our views, he's the Fat Controller, cried Percy. It's too risky, Percy, Henry sighed. What are we going to do then? Asked James. Go on strike? That went horribly last time, huffed Henry. I could send him through a wall. Maybe not the best idea, Douglas, replied a concerned pair. The engines talked and talked, but nobody knew what to do. I guess we'll just have to wait out Sagar's stay, Emily lamented. Hopefully Gordon will be back in service soon. I still think we should tell the Fat Controller. We already discussed that, Percy, retorted Henry. Well, it's a good idea. Go to sleep, said James. Percy did, regrettably. One thing the engines did agree on that night was to avoid Sagar. They avoided him like the plague. Whenever he came near, they always seemed to have remembered a job nearly forgotten. Any conversation starter was greeted by grunts and mumbling. However, Sagar began to catch on. This new behavior didn't seem to affect Sagar's attitude. If anything, worsened it. One morning, Molly peeked out of the shed. The coast was clear. She crept out of the shed towards the water column points. The firemen switched them, and she backed down the line. She applied her brakes once she got near. Moments passed. Nothing happened. Brakes, driver. We're coming in a bit quick. They're on, Molly. The driver pulled the lever forward, but her wheels just started to slip. She sped past the water column, under the coal hoppers, and straight into the buffers. She stopped with a thunderous bang as the buffers crumbled to pieces. Ouch, she whimpered under the cloud of dust. James soon arrived with the breakdown gang. Sagar arrived with the Fat Controller. He inspected the damage. Well, Molly, at least you did get rid of some buffers that needed replacing. Your tender buffers, however, did not. You'll need to go to the works to have those fixed. It seems the cause of the accident was oil that had been spilled onto the tracks, most likely from that fuel tanker over there. Strangely enough, it was on the not-to-be-moved siding. I'll have to talk to Percy about that. I have paperwork to fill out. Goodbye, Molly. He walked away. Sagar smirked. My, Morgan. I wouldn't have expected such clumsiness from an express engine. My name's Molly. James glared at the green engine. Now buzz off. You've done your job. Goodness, how rude. Funny coming from you. James, ignore him, Molly whispered. James didn't listen. Whatever do you mean, red friend? I was only teasing. Oh, sure, pal. You know, I bet you're the one that moved that tanker just to see it off the rails. James, please just leave it, Molly whispered, but it was hopeless. Accusing me of sabotage? How vulgar. You're the one who's vulgar. I know what you did, you little... James the Red Engine. James went cold. This is no way to treat our guests, especially one that has been so helpful. Go to your shed at once. James glanced over to Molly and then glared at Sagar. Yes, sir. He slowly puffed away. I must be off now. Goodbye, Morgan. The Fat Controller watched him leave. Did he say Morgan, Molly? Molly went green in the face. I think you misheard, sir. The Fat Controller paused for a moment and thought. Perhaps you're right. Goodbye. Molly wished she was right. Luckily, the works had plenty of buffers to go around, and Molly's tender soon had a new set. A day later, she was out of the works. But to her dismay, as she puffed down the line, a streak of green skimmed past her, whistling silently. Look at me now, Jesus! I'm sure it's only temporary, girl, the driver assured her. Molly didn't feel so sure. She stopped at Willsworth to wait for her pass. Boko arrived shortly after her. Hello, Molly. Goodness, it feels like forever. How's the express been? Molly sighed and looked at her buffers. Better. Boko was confused. Whatever do you Oh, is it that new engine? Molly didn't say anything, but Boko knew what she was thinking. Don't mind him. It was only temporary while you were gone. I hope so. James slowly passed with his goods, but the sinker didn't change after him. Strange. He should be good to go by now, said her driver. The station master ran up. The express is stranded on the loop. Engine failed outside Ellsbridge. Twit didn't take on any water, it seems. You'll need to take the engine to Crovan's Gate. And then what? Asked Molly. We'll take it the rest of the way, of course. Now off with you. Boko and Molly's crew laughed. Told you it was temporary, Boko chuckled. Molly beamed as she set off for the junction. Sagar was covered in a cloud of steam. His fireman hurriedly cleaned out his firebox as angry passengers crowded round. You silly great engine, said one. This is the express, not the local, said another. I'm going to be late, complained another. A whistle was soon heard, and the passengers cheered as Molly approached. My, I didn't expect such silliness from an express engine, she teased. Sagar would have replied, but the guard whistled and waved his flag. Molly let out a tremendous blast of her whistle and started off. She sped down the line, the coaches trailing behind, singing her praises once again. Passengers leapt out of the windows as the scenery flew by. Molly felt on top of the world as she crested Gordon's Road. She arrived on the workstation right on time and smoothly rolled into her platform. As she shunted Sagar into a siding, she saw a certain big blue engine meet her gaze. He was smiling and winked at her. Molly was very proud indeed and grinned back. Molly woke up the next morning to see that the others had already left. She was confused at first, but then her driver walked up to her, coffee in hand. Thought I'd let you sleep in a little bit today, old girl. You deserve it. Well, what about the express? Oh, don't worry, we'll be on time. Plenty of water and coal in your tender. Let's get going. He pulled the regulator and she puffed out of the shed. She was surprised to see her path blocked by a large apple-green shape. She froze. Her fireman walked up. Oi! Get out of our way, you lazy oaf! Sorry, sir, but I'm afraid something's jammed. Well, then we'll move you. My brakes are hard on, I'm afraid. Oh, joy, now we'll be late. No, we won't. Her fireman looked up. Molly had a look of determination on her face. I'll move this twit. No, you won't. Sagar had a nasty glare on his face. You're going to go back into your shed and let me pull the express. Why should I? Because otherwise, I'll tell them all. Molly frowned and looked down, but she looked back up. Sure you will. Now get your crew and go. I'm not going to have my place on this railway be jeopardized by you. Sagar! bellowed a voice. The engine's eyes darted over to see the Fat Controller walking over. I am appalled at your behavior. I do not tolerate bullying or name-calling on my railway. I expected better from you, especially from an engine in such a position. But sir, I will have you know that her name is Molly, he interrupted, and she is my engine. If you cannot accept these facts, you will leave my railway at once. Sagar stared at Molly and then at the Fat Controller. Yes, sir, Sagar grunted as he called for his crew. He soon left. The Fat Controller then turned to Molly. I apologize. This behavior has been allowed to occur for this long, Molly. But you must know that if there's anything troubling you, I'm always available to assist. As for your secret, it is safe with me. Let us both hope that this world becomes more open to engines and people like you. Good day, Molly. As the Fat Controller strolled away, Molly saw a little saddle tank peeking out from behind the wagon. After being spotted, he shuttled back at his view. She smiled and then thought about what the Fat Controller had said. Maybe the world wasn't as open as she wanted, but hopefully it would be soon.